All right, well, I think we'll get started here. My name is Michelle Feist. I work for the Department of Health, the Division of Disease Control, and am the West Nile Virus Program Manager. And so that's what we're here today to talk about. I would like to thank everyone for joining us, and especially I would like to thank Jessica, Ophelia, and Benny for being here today. This is, all about Benny today and his story. We are truly saddened that Benny got sick from West Nile virus and still having some lasting results from that infection that occurred back in 2016. We've had West Nile virus in North Dakota and had human cases since 2002, so it's nothing new to North Dakota. Every year there are people that contract West Nile virus. Some get very sick like Benny, but Benny fought and he survived. So I think that is something to celebrate, and we are celebrating that today. Fortunately, most people who do get West Nile virus and develop symptoms, they're typically milder. They experience things like fever, headache, rash, body aches, fatigue, nausea, and vomiting. Some people will develop more serious infection. We commonly refer to that as West Nile virus neuroinvasive disease. And so the symptoms that people will experience when they have the severe form neuroinvasive disease are things like high fever, stiff neck. They'll have altered mental status, disorientation, confusion. Some people will have coma or even pass away from West Nile virus. Many people who do have the neuroinvasive form develop things called either like encephalitis or meningitis. And what that is inflammation of the brain or the membranes around the brain. And that is a serious type infection and can cause issues that people may recover from or may not recover from. West Nile virus, that's something that can cause illness in anyone, regardless of age and regardless of their previous health status. Benny and his family did experience that firsthand, and that's why they're here today. They wish to share their story and Benny's story and to help us and them raise awareness about West Nile viruses and the seriousness of West Nile virus. So with that, I would like to call up Jessica Howling Wolf. She's Benny's mother, and she will talk about Benny and his story and then why she's here today.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Howling Wolf. I am the mother of Benny Howling Wolf, who contracted West Nile in August of 2016, and he is living alive and well when we were told that this West Nile virus should have killed him at his age and everything that his little body had went through. Also while contracting West Nile, he slipped into several comas because of the encephalitis that affected his brain. My message today is to have West Nile tested for at a clinic level. When Benny first contracted West Nile, it was on a Friday afternoon, and he had a rash on his face. And we didn't know what it was. We thought it was chicken pox or something of his age because at that moment in time he was 3 years old. And when we took him into the clinic, the pediatrician physicians had no idea what it was. They had no idea what they were looking for. They just knew he had a slight fever and he had a rash on his face. They administered ibuprofen, gave it to him, and he was perfectly fine. We went throughout our day. Came back to the clinic at 3 o'clock because he literally slouched over and was lethargic and unresponsive. So I took him back to the clinic and they tested him, swabbed his throat, took his blood, and they said that his white cell blood count is slightly elevated, nothing alarming. Give him ibuprofen, sleep, water, and rest. So the next day was Saturday. He slept all day. And later on that night at 8 p.m. on Saturday, he woke up and he said, "Mama, I'm hungry." And I said, "Okay, well, we'll feed you." And he took off running, hit the ground running, and he was a typical 3-year-old, rambunctious, running, lively. And come 10:30, he came back in and he looked at me and he said, "Mom, I'm tired. I want to go to bed." And I said, "Okay, well, we'll go to bed, son." And I shut my phone off. Peace of heart, peace of mind. My baby's okay. I can go to sleep. And the next thing I know, my husband shaking me saying, "Jessica, get up, he's seizing." And I'm like, what? And I get up and I look, and within milliseconds, you have to retain all of this and figure everything out. And my initial reaction was to panic, because I didn't know what a seizure was. I didn't know what was wrong with him. I didn't know what was going on. So then I had to pull it together to dialed 911. They got there about an hour and 20-some minutes later. Benny was seizing during that whole time. We couldn't stop him from seizing. An off-duty firefighter came in and had tried to help resuscitate Benny because he stopped breathing from aspirations of having seizure activity nonstop. And they had trouble clearing his airway. He continued to seize once they would get a pulse and air back into his lungs, into his brain. And we got there, and he flatlined. We were about maybe 10 miles out, and he had flatlined and was probably about a 3-minute ride from that point to the hospital. And there was nothing they could do, and they started to resuscitate him again. All they knew is he had an infection. They didn't know what it was. The white blood cell count level started elevating even more. They took a spinal tap. They didn't know what they were looking for. And they decided to dispatch him out or fly him out to Fargo Children's Hospital. When they flew him out to Fargo, they were waiting for him. And they did another spinal tap, and he had 4 specialists around him when he arrived. One of them was an infectious disease control doctor, and he just guessed. I'm guessing it's either hepatitis, some form of, not hepatitis, herpes, some type of herpes, possibly HIV, or West Nile. Those were the 3. And we're going to test for all of them, Jessica, but it takes 3 days. I said, okay. The 2 came back, AIDS and herpes came back negative, and then they said the West Nile was positive. What do we do? That was my next question. Okay, we got the answer. What do we do? And he said nothing. There's no cure. There's nothing we can do. We just got to wait for Benny to wake up. So it was a waiting game after that. About 2.5 weeks, finally Benny woke up. And we were pretty happy, and I always remember the day because it was on my birthday, September 11th, 2016. And he was happy. He was looking around. He tried to show as much emotion he could. He was happy to see his family. And the next day, all the doctors were happy and, ready to get going with Benny's health progress. And they decided to put a G-tube into him. And they said, we need to intubate him. And I said, okay, that's fine. No worries, nothing. And then he went in the next morning at 10 a.m. and he slipped into another coma. By that time, his body had been through so much, his brain had been through so much, there was not much more he could take, and they just told us to prepare for the worst and call your family. And I remember losing hope, and I remember it was a bad place for myself and my family, because I was the one keeping it all together and trying to be the one strong for my boy. And he's number 6 out of the 6 children we have. Benny is our last baby. And I just remember looking at him, and I just looked at Benny, and I said, Benny, I believe in you. I believe in you, Benny. You're going to come out of this. I'm putting my faith in you, son. And he started having heart attacks. His body was so stressed out, and he just started getting better. He started getting better, and it was one day at a time. They weren't sure what was going to happen to his brain. They were more worried about his brain. They never knew the possibilities of what West Nile could do to an individual, because everybody is different, and let alone Benny, a child. And they were there for us. They helped console us. They were very their hospitality, I can't even say it, but they were really welcoming and warm. And he woke up, and they were happy, and they came to his bedside. They wanted to see him. They wanted to touch him. They were there around the clock. And they said, if it's okay with you, we'll move him down to a less progressive unit. And I said, whatever you guys think, you're the experts. And if you don't mind, we'd like to start him in therapy in 2 days. And I said, okay, if it's anything that he can't handle, then yeah, let's do it. And he was in there another 2 weeks. And in the middle of middle of October, we came home, and we came into the Sanford therapy unit and pediatric therapy unit. And 2 of his therapists are here today in support for Benny, because he's came a long ways, and we owe a lot to that department, because what we were told when we left was he was never going to walk, he was never going to talk. And you might have to put him in a home. And I refuse to believe that. And to come into a circle, into a department where they give you hope, they support you, they help you, they listen to you as a parent. They're not there for their job, they're sincerely, wholeheartedly there. And we've gained family members in that department. And for them to be here today to support him means a lot to us and our family. And I'd like to recognize them and say thank you. And our message today on behalf of Benny is we'd like to see testing done on the clinic level for West Nile. If a provider or a person thinks they might have West Nile, there are different ranges of signs of it: fever, body aches, rash. The peak months are July and August for West Nile. And we'd also like to share Benny's story for the voiceless, that you are not alone in this, that we are here to help you and would love to hear your stories. We've also made a Facebook advocacy group page on Facebook, the West Nile Advocacy Group. It's on behalf of Benny, Cody, and Riley, who Cody and Riley have lost their lives due to West Nile. They were young as well. And they fought a hard battle, and we consider ourselves very lucky. Benny survived. We want to share their story and everybody's story as well, to get the people necessary on board to fight for a vaccine for the human race, and just be here for support for them as well. I don't have anything further unless anybody else does, but thank you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jessica. Benny, you have a remarkable story and a remarkable family and support group. I just want to say that. Very, very remarkable. You're very special. Yep. It's nice having people that care about you so much. So I just want to make some comments about West Nile virus prevention. So we can talk about that because that is something that is important and an important message as well. And then we can have time to take questions. And I can take questions. And Jessica, if you're willing to take some questions too from people in the room and then on the phone as well. West Nile virus is transmitted by mosquitoes. So we want to prevent those mosquito bites from happening. The best way to do that is wear repellent on exposed skin and the outside of your clothing. When permitted, because I know during the peak months, so July and August, it's warm. But if you could wear protective clothing in the evenings, it may be more easier to do that. Long sleeves, pants, that can prevent mosquito bites as well. The mosquito that transmits West Nile in North Dakota, that mosquito is active mostly between dusk and dawn. So if you're outside during those times, it's very important to be wearing repellent. Maybe you want to limit some of your outdoor activities at that time to help prevent mosquito bites as well. There's things you can do around the yard. Mosquitoes, they need water to lay their eggs on. So if you're removing standing water, flowering pots, bird baths, even, they don't need a lot of water. So even if you have litter debris that's laying around that can house water, make sure your gutters are functioning appropriately. Trying to do that around your yard. Those are things people can do to prevent mosquito areas where mosquitoes are likely to lay their eggs. You can keep that from around your home. Doing things like preventing mosquitoes from coming inside your house. Make sure you got screens on your windows and doors. Even keeping some of the brush and tall grass trimmed around your yard and home can help prevent mosquitoes from housing in that area. So there are some things that we can do. But we do know that we will have West Nile virus infections. Every year we do in North Dakota, but the more we can prevent, the better. We do website updates weekly with West Nile virus on our North Dakota Department of Health website. And we have more information about West Nile on there. And that is www.ndhealth.gov/WNV. So you can go there for more information. I think we can open it up to questions. I will put the phone on speaker, so there's people that joined us online, over the phone, you certainly can ask questions too. So I think we can open it up now.
Where are you from?
I'm from Twin Buttes.
Twin Buttes.
Yep, Twin Buttes, North Dakota.
So as part of the Facebook group that you have, you mentioned that you're looking for a vaccine to be developed. Have you heard any progress?
There's another lady that has co-opted the founding of the Facebook page, and her name is Rosalie Hopkins. She's the grandmother to Cody Hopkins, who lost his battle last year. And she has been very influential in getting the vaccine. She actually went to, getting the vaccine awareness out there. She actually went to Baylor, and it actually exists, but it's not to where funding levels are set back, pushed back on a lot of that. We also found out that the Zika virus got a couple $1 billion worth of funding this year, but West Nile was never mentioned. Not to put one above the other, but each of us in this room can all get it. You know, it's unbiased. We all know that, but to me, it's hard to. We want to try to prevent what happened to Benny and the effects, the indirect effects and the direct effects it has on a family. But it does exist. I don't know exactly what level it's at.
Yeah, and I have read some about a number of years ago. There was a vaccine candidate that did move to human clinical trials. That was a number of years ago, so I haven't heard, where that's at this point. But yeah, so that was the last I heard, and I don't know, like I said, where it's at right now in development.
So, according to the release, you have 62 testing positive for West Nile. Is that pretty much what you've seen over the past several years, or is it going up or down, or what are you seeing in terms of trends?
Yeah, so it is variable from what we'll see from one year to the next. In 2017, there were 62. The year before that, there were 85 cases. We've had a couple of years before that, they were in the 20s. So it is highly variable. The last year that we had, I want to say 137 cases was back in 2012. So it does fluctuate from year to year. We don't know how many cases there are going to be, but North Dakota does have one of the highest incidences of West Nile virus neuroinvasive disease in the country. When you look at the population size and the number of neuroinvasive disease cases, there were 62 human cases in 2017. 20 of those had the severe neuroinvasive disease form of West Nile virus. Anyone else? Okay, alrighty. All right. Well, thank you so much, and thanks everyone for joining us.